The Maple Leafs added 2 new players to the mix ahead of roster deadline day, and boy, oh boy, does it have Leafs Nation buzzing. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. And welcome to opening day in the 2025-26 NHL season. Dave, how we feeling, pal?
Feeling good. Maybe one of these days, a Canadian NHL team will be able to participate on the true opening day.
Dude, it's actually like criminal, like ridiculous that neither the Leafs, the Habs, or the Oilers are playing on opening night. And I know the Leafs, Habs, they're going to be the marquee game tomorrow when they drop the puck in Montreal, and that'll be the Maple Leafs season opener. But like, why couldn't they have put that game on opening night? Instead, we've got Hawks and Panthers. Well, Chicago's a bum team, and I get it. You got Connor McDavid. He's still a player who you want to kind of market around, sure. The Panthers are your defending champions, so you got to get them out there. But they're shell themselves. There's no Kachuk. There's no Barkov. There's injuries. Like, that's just not a very compelling game to open up your schedule. I would have much rather seen Panthers Lightning, especially how they ended the preseason. Could you imagine if that was game one of the NHL year? Would be Panthers Lightning? It'd be incredible. That would be an easy way to market the start of the NHL season. Just play a couple of montages of what we saw over the course of the last couple of games here and just say what will happen when it all counts starting October 7th.
Don't think the NHL would have agreed with that one.
Well, I mean, dude, like the NHL, do you want to get, you know, they want people to watch. They want to have people entertained to tune in. It's a much better way to happen than Hawks, Panthers. Then you got Penguins and Rangers. Neither of those teams, you know, are considered threats anymore. They're not needle movers. Sure, you got Crosby, okay. That's awesome. But like the Rangers, who knows what the heck they are? I get it. Big market, original 6 team. So you got those two playing against each other. And then the Avs and Kings are your nightcap. And that's what you have on opening night. Hawks, Panthers, 5 o'clock. Penguins, Rangers at 8 o'clock. And then Avs, Kings. I think it's a 10:30 start in LA. No Leafs, no Habs, no McDavid. It's kind of just dumb. I hate opening day, the schedule at least for the NHL. Like how you don't have the Leafs McDavid on opening night is just wild to me. It's your most marketable team, your most marketable player. Why are you waiting to showcase those two entities? It's wild. Especially when you got McDavid coming off the deal that he just signed. Get him out there on night one. Would have been fantastic. We'll get to the McDavid deal a little bit later on. But we got some Leafs news to get into, right? The start of the season's tonight for 6 teams, but the Maple Leafs, the start of the year begins tomorrow when they take on the Montreal Canadiens. And just ahead of the 5 p.m. roster deadline, the Maple Leafs decided to make a couple of additions to the team, which kind of sent the roster in flux. They made 2 waiver claims, picking up kind of power forward winger Sammy Blais, and they claimed him from Montreal, and then Cayden Primeau, a goaltender who they claimed from the Carolina Hurricanes. And there's, you know, some pretty significant ramifications with these 2 waiver claims. Let's talk a little bit about the players personally, what the Leafs are getting in these guys, what to be excited about, and then we can talk about the fallout of what these claims might mean moving forward. So let's start off with Sammy Blais, Dave. 29 years old, making league minimum. You know, he's played under Craig Berube before. They won a cup together when he was in St. Louis. You know, over 250 games of NHL experience. He's got playoff experience. Sammy Blais comes in as a veteran piece. With the injury, I guess, to Lawton, you might not want to throw Cowan out to the Wolves. I'm guessing Blais brought in as another depth option for Toronto, and one that Berube trusts in his system.
I think that's the big one there is Berube is looking to bring in somebody he trusts. The opportunity obviously presented itself with the Habs putting Blais on waivers. Like that was the first thing when I saw the news. I'm like, okay, like this is clearly, bringing in somebody who has a little more familiarity and honestly a little bit more of that bite, right, to the fourth line. Because if you looked at the fourth line that was in practice, yeah, Nicolas Waugh, is a pretty physical player, but doesn't really have that bite. Steven Lorentz, good player. I don't know if he has really that bite. He'll get a little physical if it's needed. Like Lawton is kind of like he provides a little bit of I feel he provides the edge.
Yeah.
I think that's something that this Leafs team, you just brought that up, the Lightning and the Panthers. I had somebody literally who reached out to me and was like, I don't know if the Leafs are going to be able to or want to deal with that.
Well, they're going to have to. If it comes down to it, they're certainly going to have to deal with that at some point here. So they bring him in. He's obviously a fit for the system. Berube clearly went to bat for the guy. Again, they spent a lot of time. Blais' best hockey was played under Craig Berube. Trusted him enough to let him play in, I think, 18 playoff games the year that they won the cup. So, he was a big piece for Berube as in a depth role at the very least. So, I think he's going to come in and I'm curious if he'll have a role right away. That's the one thing that I'm curious about. Like, is he the 13th forward or is he a guy in the opening night lineup for you? Like right now, based on practice lines, the bottom six with Lawton out kind of in flux. It's just far different than what it's been the last little bit. You've got Domi with Joshua and Nick Robertson as your third line. And the fourth line, it's Nicolas Waugh with Steve Lorentz and Calle Yarncroke. It's very conceivable to me that, again, you want to add that little bit of bite, that forechecking, hard to play against guy into your bottom six. Sammy Blais provides that over both Robertson and Yarncroc. So if that's what they want to do, if that's the style of game that Berube wants to play and wants to get out of his bottom six, Blais fits that far more than either Yarncroc or Nick Robertson. It's just a matter of whether or not, so soon is he going to get that option? Does Ty go to the veteran, the guys who've been here longer? Or even Robertson's case, and Yarncroc, two guys who can provide a little bit more offense, definitely more skilled than Sammy Blais. It really is going to come down to what Berube wants.
Yeah, exactly. I do. Blais not going to score a lot of goals for you. He already have, if you look at his stats,
he's got 27 goals in 257 games at the NHL level.
Yeah, like that's. You're not expecting him to be a big time contributor in that regard. But the part that gets me a bit here is having Domi and Robertson on the same line. Like we talked a lot about what Craig Berube is looking for in his players. It's interesting that he will bring back a Domi Robertson pairing, considering their defensive shortcomings.
It probably just tells me that they're not going to deploy the third line as a matchup line.
No,
that's what that tells me. That's going to go to, Waugh, Lorentz, and insert whichever other winger gets put in there. Today at practice, it was Calle Yarncroc. Easton Cowan could still be an option there if he wants to be. Maybe that's where they put Sammy Blais potentially at, if they want to get him in the lineup right away. So, it is interesting. You bring in a new piece to the team and you just wonder, okay, is he a guy who they want to get in there right away? Do they believe that he's a better fit for the lineup, or do they have him as insurance, as depth? When they got the Lawton injury, do they want to pick up someone else who could play a physical style at least? And, when matchup permitted, like when they play Tampa or like when they play Florida or any of those other, rough and tough tumble teams, you have a guy out there who's a little bit, heavier, who plays with that edge, plays physical. And that's what Sammy Blais could give them if they want to play it that way. Or maybe they just want him in the lineup as on a fourth line role, play 9 minutes, don't get scored on, be a relentless forechecker, impose your will, go, north-south game, go to the net. And that's pretty much what he's going to be. right? I think he's got a career high. What year was it? I think he had 20 points in 31 games the one season in St. Louis. That was a career high for him. But that's outside of that has not shown the ability to be a high point producer. So I wouldn't expect much out of him in terms of being, the best guy, I guess, being a point producer at any point throughout the season. He's just going to give you some energy, I would say. So, again, we'll find out tomorrow where he plays, where he's slotted. Right now, I guess, right now, I think he's on the open net roster. Right now, I have him penciled in on the fourth line. What about you?
Yep, that's kind of where I have him. I think the Lawton injury just changed kind of all of our expectation when it comes to this open night roster, because we talked about in the last episode, like Easton Cowan
didn't make the roster. He didn't make the
roster, and that's probably the biggest surprise. But also at the same time, I think there's a reason for it, and some are suggesting it might just be cap reasons, and we might just see something change.
Could be a paper move. Why don't we take a break? Let's come back. They did claim another guy off waivers, Cayden Primeau, which did have another subsequent move as well that was involved with that waiver claim, but we'll get to that. We'll talk about the final roster, who made it, who didn't, and what is our overall opening night lineup projection. We'll get to all that, plus McDavid's sweetheart deal in Edmonton. That's all coming up on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. The NHL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can use it however you want to bet, whether it's a parlay, whether you're picking some player props, or even possibly a futures bet. It makes watching hockey even more exciting when you've got a little bit of something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you, as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube as well, 5 days a week. And subscribe if you want to keep locked into what's going on with Leafs Nation. It's your one-stop shop. It's all Leafs all the time here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. And again, the kind of news of the day on Monday, it was the Maple Leafs had to submit their final roster by 5 o'clock Eastern. They made 2 waiver claims, bringing in Sammy Blais and goaltender Cayden Primeau. The one guy who did not make the roster, which has a lot of people wondering what the heck is going on, Easton Cowan was assigned down to the Marlies. We'll get to that in just a moment and what that could possibly mean for the Maple Leafs and for Easton Cowan's future this season. But I want to chat a little bit about Cayden Primeau, the goaltender that the Maple Leafs claimed off of waivers, 26 years old, so he's no longer, a youngin' like he was in his early years in Montreal. And this was a goaltender, Dave, who at one point the Canadiens organization kind of billed him as their goalie of the future, and it just didn't go very well. He had 55 career games played with the Montreal Canadiens. He went 13, 23, and 7 with a 377 goals against and an 884 save percentage at the NHL level with Montreal after a great collegiate season at Northeastern, but didn't go well. And he found his way in Carolina, and then the Hurricanes had just waived him the other day, and the Maple Leafs decided we need another goaltender with Joseph Woll not with the team yet. We didn't quite love what James Reimer gave us in his relief outing the other night in his half of a game played against Detroit. Let's take a shot on a young goalie who had promised once upon a time in Cayden Primeau, and it looks like he's going to be the Leafs' number 2 goaltender moving forward here, with Dennis Hildeby being sent down to the American Hockey League And of course, James Reimer subsequently released from his PTO.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, obviously there were a few goalies that were placed on waivers that drew a little bit of interest. Cayden Primeau was not the top one on my list, and I did wonder if the Leafs would consider signing a goalie, claiming goalie, just because, do you want Dennis Hill to be your backup, or do you even want Dennis Hill to be on sitting on the bench, because we know that they value having that development time. And I don't know if I'm ready to say for sure that Cayden Primeau is the solution either, because clearly he wasn't even going to make the Hurricanes, who, I mean, I'll case person.
Well, yeah, Kochetkov and Freddie Anderson. I mean, that's a pretty good duo.
Yeah,
I mean, not beating out one of those two doesn't necessarily mean
for sure
he's not worthy of an NHL roster spot.
Yeah. I also think that I look at this strategically as, okay, we'll just ride this out for as long as we need to. And if Cayden Primeau gets reclaimed on waivers, so be it, right? Because then once Wool's back, this is all going to kind of sort itself out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, buys you some time.
Once Wool comes back, like Primo's going to sent back down anyways, and he made it very far down the waiver wire before Toronto put a claim on him. So it's not like there's other teams, clamoring to bring Cayden Primeau into the organization. So even, when Wool comes back, regardless of how unless he stands on his head for a couple of outings, there's a good chance he'll clear regardless. And then all of a sudden you just have another piece of organizational depth, someone who has NHL experience. And now I've got that third goalie who's got that experience. And last year in the American Hockey League, though, he was pretty fantastic. That's the one thing that is very intriguing about Cayden Primeau. Again, early in his career, he was thrown to the Wolves. He was 20, 21 years old, I think, is when he came up with the Montreal Canadiens. They stunk. They're in a rebuild. It was absolutely terrible. There was no structure in front of him. He was left out to dry all the time. No wonder he didn't put up good numbers. But last year, in the American Hockey League, that Laval Rocket team is pretty solid. They've done a good job of rebuilding that squad. There was actually some defense being played in front of him. He was 21-2-3 with a 192 goals against and a 926 save percentage in 26 games at the AHL level. I get it. AHL, NHL, completely different. It's a whole other animal. But I think, if he has that confidence that he had last year and he carries that into this season, if he gets an opportunity to play behind Toronto's structure, as long as he does his job, he should be able to give them adequate goaltending, more than enough to be considered an NHL backup, I would think, at this point in his career. So I actually like the move. There's no future with James Reimer here in Toronto, so letting him go doesn't really hurt you. It allows Dennis Hill to continue to develop at the American Hockey League level, be the starter down there, get a good workload in, and then Primeau could be the number two, and Wool comes back at some point here in the next little bit. Boom, you send him back down, and now I've got four goalies with NHL experience that you feel pretty good about. So I thought it was a pretty savvy claim by the Maple Leafs.
Usually the opposite happens. The Leafs are thrown. I mean, remember when Curtis McElhinney was thrown on waivers and he just became a solid backup for the Tampa Bay Lightning for free?
That COVID year, the Maple Leafs had 6 guys claimed off waivers.
Yeah.
It was wild. Anyone they put on waivers ended up getting claimed that season. It was crazy. And shoes on the other foot. And I got the Maple Leafs making some claims and bringing in some depth pieces. It kind of feels good. Not going to lie. Feels all right.
It does. And I'm, we'll just kind of hope that this decision, hopefully, I don't even want to say it right now. You already know where I'm going with this, but you're just kind of hoping that this is just a just in case move. Let's just call it that.
Yeah, a just in case type of move. But the fourth game of the season is a back-to-back. So if Joseph Woll's not ready to go for that back-to-back, we'll probably see Cayden Primeau. Probably we'll see him at some point in the next couple of weeks here. I believe there's 3 back-to-backs in the month of October. So if it takes Woll a little bit longer to get back, and then he's going to have to go through a conditioning stint probably, you might get a couple of games out of Cayden Primeau, and we'll see what he's got. We'll see what he's got. So far hasn't been good at the NHL level. Didn't play for a good team, I'll say that. But he showed some promise at age 25 in the American League. And we know that goaltenders typically start to blossom once they get over that age of 25, 26, 27. So when they turn into something. And once upon a time, he was the apple of the eye of the Montreal Canadiens. Maybe they gave up on him too soon. I don't have high expectations. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he's going to be the goalie of the future here for Toronto, but it's a worthwhile pickup that getting a goalie with NHL experience to be your backup, but most likely third goalie at league minimum, 26 years old. I think it's a savvy claim for the Maple Leafs. So the goaltending seems to be settled a little bit. Let's come back and let's get to the final roster. Who's in, who's out, and what do we project the opening night lineup to look like? That's coming up next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of Locked On Leafs podcast is also brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If you're looking for somebody, the last thing you want to do is delay things because the pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. You can find the Locked On Leafs podcast wherever you get a podcast. Dave, the opening night roster has been set, sort of. And this is where things get interesting. And this is where the Brandon Pridhams of the world get their fingerprints on the roster. And this is why he gets paid the big bucks as the AGM, the cap guru, if we will. Because the roster that was submitted at 5 p.m. on Monday, the roster deadline, may not be the actual opening night roster when the puck drops at 7 p.m. in Montreal on Wednesday. So do you have the list pulled up of the players that made the team as of now, who made the roster as of now after the Sammy Blais and Cayden Primeau waiver claims? I know that they tweeted it out, what the guys who made the team. Obviously, the biggest news was that Easton Cowan was not on that opening night roster, and guys like Nick Robertson, guys like Calle Jarnkrok, Sammy Blais, who was just brought in, claimed via waivers, all were on the opening night roster. And here it is. We're showing you guys up on YouTube. Sammy Blais, Max Domi, Calle Jarnkrok, Dakota Joshua, Matthew Nye, Steven Lorentz, Matthias Michelli, Austin Matthews, Bobby McMahon, William Nylander, Nick Robertson, Nick Waugh, John Tavares, Jacob Quillen. And I say that because we'll get back to Jacob Quillen in just a moment. Simon Benoit, Brandon Carlo, OEL, McCabe, Phil Myers, Morgan Riley, Chris Tanev, and then Stolars and Cayden Primeau are your goaltenders. So the guys, I guess, who we expected to be on this roster 48 hours ago that aren't would be obviously Easton Cowan, and then Dennis Hildeby got sent down and reassigned to the Marlies as well by when they brought in Cayden Primeau to kind of take over that backup goaltending position. But the Easton Cowan one is definitely one that kind of raised a lot of eyebrows when that lineup came out, that tweet came out earlier today. What was your reaction when you saw the roster get released and see that Easton Cowan, who had a pretty darn good camp, had been talked about very positively by Coach Berube, was not on the roster.
Well, that was it. Like, it was a bit of surprise just because of what Craig Berube had said. Literally 2 days before, like on Saturday night after the final game, and it just felt like something changed. Obviously, the injury, we talked a lot about it, but I'm kind of with you that injury just it changed things. So it changed a lot of how Berube wanted to utilize his lineup, right? How he wanted the lineup to look. And so, yeah, it shouldn't be surprising that Cowan's put down just for now. We'll see what happens in the next couple of days, because it feels like, it might just be a temporary thing. But the fact that he wasn't stapled to the opening night lineup, I think says something about where they feel the roster is currently with how things are going right now.
Yeah. So a couple of people have suggested, some smart hockey folk who know the cap inside and out, all the cap gymnastics that people go through, suggest that Easton Cowan, although he was sent down, could maybe resurface, could be a paper move to get everything sorted out. By getting Jacob Quillen in over Cowan, it kind of gave them an opportunity to get Marshall Refi on LTIR. And then if they need the cap recapture at some point, they can use that. And they got as close to the cap as they possibly could by doing so. So there are some suggestions that was the reason why Easton Cowan did not get there. I know Kyle Cushman, friend of the show, said Jacob Quillen, who I recall a second ago. I was like, keep his name in mind, because that's a big surprise that Jacob Quillen made the team out of camp. It's not a name not a lot of us were talking about. He said Jacob Quillen is on the roster for cap reasons. The Leafs are $19,721 under the $95.5 million cap limit and can now place Marshall Refi or others onto LTIR, and then they'll be able to recall Easton Cowan after that to it'll allow them to give them that extra player and put them into LTIR, and it'll give them some extra cap space if they need it moving forward. So there still is a possibility, folks, that Easton Cowan could still potentially be on this team's opening night roster. So he didn't make the break camp team, the named roster, but he could potentially be in the lineup Wednesday night against the Canadiens. Now, the question, Dave, is do you think that is going to happen? This is all speculation of what possibly could happen. What are the odds that does happen, though?
I think it's not as likely, in my opinion, just because of the Sammy Blais move. Like, if you didn't need to go and get a Sammy Blais. Like, if we're being honest here, we talked so much about how much depth and how much competition there is, and yet they go and they do this. And
so I'm gonna show you one thing that makes me think that this possibly could be the option. So let's go through our projected starting lineup based on the roster that is in place right now. So based on what we just went through, the players that are on the roster, the 23 guys as it currently sits. So in our estimation and our projection for Wednesday night's game, based on who is currently on the team, we've got Nyes, Matthews, and Michelli as your top line, McMahon, Tavares, and Nylander as your second line, Joshua, Domi, and Robertson as your third line, and then Lorentz, Watt, and Sammy Blais as the fourth line. And then obviously defense looks the same, and the goaltenders, you got Cayden Primeau in there behind Anthony Stolarz. But let me ask you this, Dave, right? You look at this lineup, you look at the bottom six, right? Joshua, Domi, Robertson as the third line, Lorentz, Watt, and Blais as your fourth line. Do you think this team would look better or worse if you slide in Cowan for Robertson?
I think Cowan provides a little bit more of what I thought Berube was looking for in terms of that two-way ability, because I think, yes, Robertson's going to be able to score more goals, but I think you're more comfortable having Cowan in kind of different situations that maybe you're not with Robertson. But
right.
it all depends on, I guess, because of who you have on that line. They're looking for someone for offense. And I don't know, that might be too much to ask Easton Cowan to do right out of the gate.
Possibly it could be, but I think you're playing with a couple of veterans and some guys who've been in the game for a while, right? Joshua is going to be a nice energy piece. Domi obviously is a good piece. He can move the puck. I don't think you're going to ask them to be, again, a defensive matchup line, but I think you might feel a little more comfortable if they get, put in those situations, possibly. And we still need to see if it works out for Cowan at the NHL level, I guess. This is all still projection, but that's the only place where I look and I wonder if Cowan is going to get called up on game night on Wednesday. If that's the case, I would imagine that's where he slides in. And then he skates alongside Joshua and Domi, and Robertson's probably the odd man looking out because they brought in Sammy Blais for a reason. So I think he's going to be the guy who they want to put in there on the fourth line. So Robertson for Cowan might be that really that only thing that makes sense if Cowan is going to be in the opening night lineup.
Well, that's it too, right? I just think that given where things kind of say, like you look also the first few games that this team's going to be playing, right? Not the hardest of matchups considering, right? When you start your like Montreal, half decent team, right? You got 2 against Detroit and you got the Predators. Like it's sets up in a way where you can kind of you can give a Robertson a chance. Hey, look, here's some prime matchups for you to go out and provide some offense. Go and do that.
Do that with Cowan too, though.
You definitely can. I just think that, I think just with the dynamics of what they're looking for.
Well, I almost wonder too. Are you more willing to lose a Yarncroke or a Robertson to waivers now that you have added depth in Sammy Blais as well?
Yeah.
Like, does that factor into the decision at all?
Probably. I would say probably. And like they just have so many options. Now, are they the best options in the world? I think there's something left to be desired a little bit in the like, especially that third line. I don't like Domi as a center.
Pretty good fourth line.
But the fourth line, it's got an identity there. They're going to be a pain to play against. That's what that's what was going to happen with whether it was Lawton there, whether now Rod there. Like, I think that was the case.
Yeah.
I'm just very curious if I just wonder, will they delay the call up of Cowan just to let him play, regularly with the Marlies, or as you're saying, like, is Robertson just holding a spot right now until they bring Easton back? And like Easton Cowan with Domi and Joshua, like there is intrigue to that. There definitely is.
There they could score. Like that gives you more of a top 9 and a fourth line identity role, right? Where you got top 9 who could score, then your fourth line is your matchup line. Like, that's one way to go about it, as opposed to top 6, bottom 6, right? So it's however Berube wants to attack things. But it's a decently soft schedule to start. Like Montreal, you got Detroit for a couple, the Preds, the Rangers at home. You welcome the Kraken at home. You're at home a lot in the first month too, so that helps. You got the line matchups that you want to get. You get off to a good start. That's going to help. So we'll see what ends up happening with the Maple Leafs. But as of now, these are what the lineup, what the opening night roster is, what the lineup becomes tomorrow once they play the Canadiens. We'll see. We'll see what comes of it. I'm sure practice might be a little telling Wednesday morning what happens there. Really quickly before we go, Dave, we had some massive news break as we were recording yesterday's show. We did not have the figures yet, but Connor McDavid's contract was signed. He signed a 2-year deal with the Edmonton Oilers, and we were both pretty shocked, perplexed by the annual average salary that he ended up signing for, because we were on this show recording and the numbers didn't come out yet. I'm like, well, it has to be above Kaprizov. Like, has to be.
I kind of fought back on that idea just a little bit, but even I did not expect what was going to happen.
Right, because then we saw a tweet come out just as we finished recording saying, sounds like it's under 15 million. And I'm like, whoa, what a crazy discount. Under 15 million? Is he going to match Leon? Maybe sign a 2-year deal at 14 million and get paid the same amount as Leon Draisaitl, his buddy? No. He said, no, I don't need 14. I don't even need 13. Give me 12, 5. Give me a 2-year deal, 25 million. And let's leave some money on the table to bring in some players over the next couple of years, and let's go win a cup. I was flabbergasted when I saw that AAV come in at $12.5 million. This is the best player in the world, Dave, by a large margin. And he signed a deal that pretty much rivals what Mitch Marner signed in Vegas. If you look at it based off of what his take-home pay is going to be, he's going to make significantly less money than Mitch Marner will make in Vegas. 2 years at 12.5 is the biggest sweetheart contract maybe in the history of the NHL. I can't believe that he signed that type of deal. And apparently this was on him. He's the one who put these terms out there and was like, this is the contract I want. But it does put a lot of pressure on the Edmonton Oilers, because I do believe
1,000%.
if they don't use those 2 years wisely and they don't use the $5 million that he left on the table, he's out of there.
Yeah.
They have 3 years to win a Stanley Cup with Connor McDavid. That's it. 3 years to win a Stanley Cup. After this 2 years is up, I think he's gone. Absolutely. He's out of here. So lots of pressure now on Edmonton to win the damn thing and end the Canadian Cup drought and get a cup ring for one Connor McDavid.
I know it. And one other thing, I was talking to someone, actually, I was talking to Frank, good friend of the show. And we're just like, this is Connor McDavid putting it out there saying, I did everything I could to make sure this Oilers team could be competitive and win a cup, so that if he does leave, the Oilers have nobody to blame but themselves, and McDavid should not take any heat should he decide, yeah, I'm done after this.
100%. 100%. And, we'll see what they do. Obviously, moving forward, they still got to figure out the goaltending situation. Like, that's the thing. Even this season, they don't have the goalies. The goalies figured out. You got Stu Skinner and Cal Pickard once again going into the season. Okay, you brought in Connor Ingram. I don't think he's the savior there. Like, he's very similar to Cayden Primeau, realistically, for them. So I'm still shocked that was the number that he agreed to sign. And I think you're right, man. When he leaves in 3 years, cup or not, he can look back and say, I did my part. I definitely did my part. They failed to deliver you a cup, Edmonton fans. I left $5 million on the table, and instead they were giving that money away like candy to third-pair defensemen like Jake Wellman. Insanity. That right after McDavid leaves money on the table, they give a full 7 years, $7 million deal to Jake Wellman to follow. And it's not that he's not he's a bad defenseman. 7 years.
They're paying a lot of money to okay defensemen.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Even Bouchard's really good. I'm talking about Darnell Nurse.
That defensive core is making way too much money. Way too much money, man. Like an insane amount of change. And they might want to pay a goalie at some point and get some saves, Might want to do that. But a massive, historic, team-friendly deal Connor McDavid signed there. 2 years, $12.5 million. AAV, $25 million in total. But the clock is ticking. Edmonton's got 3 years to win a cup, or I believe it's hasta la bye-bye for Connor McDavid. All right, Dave, that'll do it for us here today. When we come back tomorrow, it will be opening night for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I can't wait. We've got a bonus episode coming out as well today. If you haven't listened to it already, it's our annual NHL season predictions and Maple Leafs team over-unders. We'll have that bonus episode out to you guys as well. But that does it for us here today on the pod. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On at Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. It'll be opening night for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's opening day in the NHL. Enjoy the games tonight. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.